Welcome to Fashionable Kanvas, a space where fashion, culture, and global trends effortlessly converge.
Absolutely. It's great to be here.
Yeah, and in this fifth deep dive, we are going to talk about the 1994 sitcom Friends and really dig into how, what they wear became so globally iconic.
Right, because it's a completely fascinating premise.
It is, because, okay, if you were to walk into the design headquarters of modern luxury houses today, like Prada or The Row, you'd probably assume their inspiration boards are plastered with, I don't know, avant-garde French cinema, or maybe abstract art.
Oh, for sure. You'd expect high art.
Right. But according to the research we're looking at today, you are actually just as likely to find a printed out screenshot of a fictional chef from a 1994 sitcom just making a sandwich in a perfectly tailored pair of vintage denim.
It's wild. It really is an anomaly that completely defies how the fashion industry is supposed to work.
Yeah, totally. Because fashion is inherently built on obsolescence, right?
Exactly. I mean, a trend is introduced, it peaks, and then it is deliberately killed off so the industry can sell you the next new silhouette.
Yeah, they have to keep moving.
Right. But here we are nearly 30 years after this show premiered, and the wardrobes of these specific characters are literally dictating modern luxury collections. Not to mention Gen Z mood boards and the current shift towards sustainable fashion.
Which is exactly the mission for today's deep dive. We need to figure out the mechanics of how this happened, because looking through these sources, it breaks my brain a little bit.
I know exactly what you mean.
Like, on one side of the page here, I have a photo of a character from 1997 in a mock neck sleeveless top and straight leg trousers. And then, on the right, there's a runway look from literally 6 months ago.
And they're essentially indistinguishable.
They're identical. So to understand how a multi-camera comedy outlasted 3 decades of runway turnover, we really have to look at the architect behind the scenes, the show's costume designer, Deborah Maguire.
Yeah, you really can't separate the longevity of the show's style from Maguire's core philosophy.
Tell me more about that.
Well, to understand her impact, we kind of have to contextualize what television fashion actually looked like in the 1990s and early 2000s.
Right, it was loud.
Exactly. The defining aesthetic for aspirational TV was often highly conspicuous. Like, if you look at a contemporary show like Sex and the City.
Oh yeah, the fashion on that show was basically the main character.
Exactly. The relationship with luxury labels was literal plot material. You know, the clothes were loud, they were heavily branded, and they functioned as secondary characters. But Maguire took a completely antagonistic approach to that style of television dressing.
Right, I was reading her interviews in the source material, and she explicitly avoided putting recognizable designer logos on screen.
None at all.
Yeah, and she didn't want those dramatic, cinematic makeovers where a character walks down a staircase to a pop song. But, I keep thinking about the cultural context of the mid-90s.
Which was very much about supermodels.
Yeah, people were tuning in for escapism. The fashion industry was totally dominated by the high-octane glamour of the supermodel era. Cindy Crawford, Naomi Campbell.
The giants of the runway.
Exactly. So if Maguire's core philosophy was restraint, shouldn't putting these characters in basic ribbed turtlenecks and Levi's have felt incredibly boring to an audience looking for television magic?
That is the exact paradox, actually. And it's why her work was so radical. It honestly should have been boring.
But it wasn't.
No, because Maguire understood a fundamental psychological truth about television audiences. We rarely fall in love with clothes alone. We fall in love with people.
Oh, that's a great point.
Right. By practicing absolute restraint, she ensured the wardrobe never overpowered the actor's face or, the punchline they were delivering.
It was always about the character first.
Exactly. She wasn't building a fantasy museum exhibit of unattainable garments. She was building believable lives. The viewer didn't see a television wardrobe curated by a corporate studio department.
Yeah, they saw real clothes.
They saw clothes they could vividly imagine hanging in the closets of those specific, slightly messy Manhattan apartments.
So it was almost a form of grounded anti-escapism. Like, you aren't escaping into a world of unattainable wealth. You're escaping into a world where your own reality just looks slightly more polished.
And cohesive. Yes.
Right. And to really see how she executed that, I think we need to look at the character whose wardrobe was basically a real-time coming-of-age story, Rachel Green.
Oh, definitely. But analyzing Rachel requires us to do something very difficult.
Ignore the hair.
Yes. We have to urge everyone listening to completely look past the Rachel haircut.
I know, it's so hard. It was everywhere.
It was a global phenomenon, absolutely. But focusing solely on that layered chop completely overshadows a brilliant masterclass in fashion evolution. Rachel's wardrobe is the most visibly tied to personal growth of anyone on the show.
Let's map that out for the listeners because the mechanics of her style transformation are so clever in the sources.
They really are.
Like when we first meet Rachel, she's a runaway bride. She has zero work experience. She's cut off from her parents' credit cards, and she's trying to navigate independence for the first time.
And her clothes are practically screaming that youthful uncertainty.
Literally screaming it. We see these oversized, chunky sweaters that just swallow her up, like she's seeking comfort or hiding.
Yeah, the silhouette is very defensive.
Right. She wears innocent plaid skirts, delicate floral dresses, white socks paired with chunky loafers. It's a very specific blend of naivety and this quiet, budding confidence.
Exactly. And watch how the wardrobe shifts as her career advances.
Yes, the progression is so good.
She moves from pouring coffee to being a buyer at Bloomingdale's, and eventually a merchandising executive at Ralph Lauren. And McGuire signals this professional maturation without using flashy, abrupt costume changes.
She doesn't just suddenly show up in a sequin gown.
No, not at all. She does it purely through the mechanics of tailoring. The soft, chaotic floral prints are replaced by sleek, monochromatic slip dresses.
I love those slip dresses.
Right. And the oversized, hiding-from-the-world knits are replaced by structured blazers that physically change the way the character occupies space in a room.
Oh, that point about occupying space is so good. It's like she armored herself in cashmere as she climbed the corporate ladder.
Armored in cashmere, I love that.
But looking at the historical context, the 80s and early 90s had a very specific, almost aggressive blueprint for power dressing for women in corporate environments.
Oh, the massive shoulder pads.
Yes. Massive shoulder pads, highly aggressive geometric silhouettes. But Rachel wasn't doing that. Her blazers were tailored, but they were soft. How did she project authority without falling into that dated 1980s power suit trap?
By fundamentally redefining what confidence looked like. Rachel's style completely rejected that aggressive, hypermasculine 1980s corporate armor.
She didn't need to look like a linebacker.
Exactly. She proved that you didn't need a shoulder pad out to your ears to be taken seriously in a boardroom. She utilized precise, understated simplicity.
Like what, specifically?
Well, her closet became dominated by crisp white button-downs, impeccably cut camel coats, tailored leather trousers, and really fine knitwear. She was relying on the drape of the fabric and the precision of the cut to project authority.
Which is exactly what we call quiet luxury today, isn't it?
It is the absolute definition of it.
I mean, decades before social media influencers coined the term, Rachel was executing the exact principles. No logos, premium basics, neutral palettes, and an emphasis on fit over flash.
Precisely. Quiet luxury is essentially the idea that true wealth or confidence doesn't need to shout. It whispers.
It whispers, yeah.
And simplicity, when executed with that level of precision, inherently becomes timeless because it isn't relying on a fleeting gimmick. Rachel's wardrobe was aspiration grounded entirely in reality.
Now, if Rachel's wardrobe was driven by aspiration and this upward trajectory of transformation, her roommate Monica represents a completely different psychological approach to clothing.
Oh, a total 180.
Yeah, Monica's style evolution is fascinating because, well, there really isn't one.
Right. She represents radical consistency.
Exactly. And Monica is an incredible case study in discipline, which makes sense for her character.
Her style was so incredibly consistent, so devoid of flashy trends, that her influence was almost invisible during the show's original run.
People were so focused on Rachel.
Right. But retrospectively, Monica quietly became one of the most influential templates for understated dressing on television.
And you can see that discipline in every single outfit. It's an aggressively controlled wardrobe.
Highly controlled.
We're talking tailored black trousers, perfectly worn straight-leg denim, ribbed knit turtlenecks, simple slip dresses over baby tees.
And her color palette.
Yes. The color palette is so restricted. Earthy neutrals, charcoal grays, deep burgundies, navy blues. You never see her in a wild neon print or a chaotic pattern.
Never.
If Rachel's closet is a coming-of-age story, Monica's closet is a perfectly curated menu where no ingredient is ever wasted.
That analogy is perfect because we have to remember who Monica is. She's a professional chef who is highly competitive, slightly neurotic, and deeply obsessed with order, precision, and balance.
Right, she needs to control her environment.
Exactly. Her clothing is a psychological defense mechanism as much as it is a style choice. She maintains order in her life through the strict parameters of her wardrobe.
Which is so relatable.
It is. She was essentially executing a flawless capsule wardrobe. A small collection of versatile, high-quality items that all mix and match perfectly long before style blogs made that concept a trend.
It's honestly striking when you look at modern high-end fashion houses today. Like if you look at runway collections from The Row, Totemi, Jill Sander, or Prada, you are literally just looking at Monica's closet.
It's the exact same DNA.
It's all clean tailoring, luxurious but utilitarian fabrics, and elegant restraint. But here's what I want to ask you about Monica. The fashion industry is fundamentally obsessed with novelty, right?
Always.
It thrives on convincing consumers that what they bought last year is now obsolete. So in that context, is Monica's absolute refusal to change actually her most rebellious fashion statement?
That is such a brilliant way to look at it. Yes, refinement can be just as revolutionary as reinvention.
Because she's opting out of the cycle.
Exactly. Monica reminds us that true elegance often lies in knowing exactly who you are and refusing to deviate from it just because a magazine tells you to.
Right.
By refusing to chase novelty, her clothes reflected internal discipline rather than external trend chasing.
Yeah.
And that is exactly why her influence has aged so gracefully.
It just doesn't look dated.
Not at all. She demonstrated that a wardrobe built on high-quality, wearable basics isn't boring. It is the ultimate form of quiet confidence. She is entirely immune to the trend cycle.
Which brings us to the perfect pivot. If Monica uses clothing to maintain strict order and control, we have to talk about the character who uses clothing to actively invite chaos.
Yes, the foil to Monica's discipline.
The woman who looked at all the rules of late 20th century professional fashion and threw them entirely out the window? Phoebe Buffay.
Phoebe occupies an entirely different sartorial universe. I mean, if Monica's order, Phoebe is joyful anarchy.
Joyful anarchy, yes.
She completely refused any sort of aesthetic categorization.
She really is a walking algorithm breaker. You look at her outfits, and it's this wildly eclectic, almost dizzying universe of textures.
The layering alone.
Oh, the layering is insane. She's mixing vintage lace dresses with heavy velvet jackets. She's wearing embroidered, almost tapestried coats with faux fur collars.
Right.
And she layers heavy, handmade oxidized silver jewelry with delicate, colorful scarves and massive, oversized gemstone rings.
It's a lot of look, but it works for her.
Because, unlike Rachel, who is dressing to conquer the corporate ladder, or Monica, who is dressing for practical precision, Phoebe is dressing for an audience of one.
Herself.
Exactly. She completely ignores professional or societal expectations of what a woman in her 20s in New York should look like.
Algorithm breaker is the exact right term. If we analyze Phoebe's wardrobe through a modern 2020s lens, she is directly connected to two major movements in contemporary fashion that are highly relevant today.
Okay, let's break those down.
First, there's the movement of maximalism and joyful eccentricity.
Now, can you define maximalism in this context? Because sometimes people hear that and they just think cluttered.
That's a really good distinction. Maximalism isn't just throwing on clothes in the dark. It's a highly deliberate curation of clashing elements.
Ah, deliberate.
Right. It's the philosophy that more is more, utilizing contrasting textures, eras, and patterns to create a sense of visual abundance. You can draw a direct, undeniable line from Phoebe's deliberate, eclectic layering to Alessandro Michele's highly influential tenure at Gucci in the 2010s.
Oh, wow. I never thought about that connection.
Oh, it's totally there. He redefined modern luxury by celebrating grandpa cardigans, clashing patterns, and vintage aesthetics.
Yeah.
And Phoebe was doing exactly that.
Okay, so maximalism is the first movement. What is the second modern trend she accidentally pioneered?
Sustainability and archive fashion.
Really?
Yeah. Long before vintage shopping was framed as a conscious environmental imperative to fight fast fashion, Phoebe was naturally mixing secondhand pieces with handcrafted accessories.
She was just doing it because it was her style.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's important to clarify what we mean by archive fashion today. It isn't just grabbing a used cheap t-shirt from a thrift bin.
Right.
Archive fashion is about treating specific, older designer pieces or unique vintage items as historical artifacts to be collected and curated.
That makes sense.
Phoebe wasn't buying disposable trends. She was curating artifacts. She built a wardrobe based on extreme individuality rather than mass consumption.
Wait, so by layering old handcrafted jewelry and refusing to buy into whatever the mall mannequins were wearing, she was essentially practicing sustainable fashion before it was even a corporate buzzword.
She absolutely was.
She's basically thrifting as a personality trait. It feels like the ultimate antidote to today's perfectly curated, highly sterile, beige social media feeds.
Yes.
Her style is messy, it's joyful, and it's deeply personal. But I have to ask, did Phoebe actually predict the future of fashion? Or did the fashion world just finally get exhausted by perfection and catch up to her absolute freedom?
I would argue the fashion world finally caught up. Modern fashion, particularly among younger consumers, has increasingly moved toward valuing personal expression and unique finds over strict trend conformity.
People want to look unique.
Exactly. Phoebe never chased fashion. She dressed according to her own internal, highly idiosyncratic logic. As today's consumers increasingly turn to resale platforms like Depop or The RealReal to build unique identities away from fast fashion, Phoebe's approach feels incredibly prescient.
It's so true.
What once looked delightfully weird on television now just looks aspirational.
Which perfectly sets up the final piece of this puzzle in the sources.
Hmm.
We've looked at Rachel's corporate tailoring, Monica's disciplined minimalism, and Phoebe's sustainable maximalism. We need to talk about the most surprising demographic that is currently embracing all three of these aesthetics.
Generation Z.
Yes, Generation Z. We are talking about a massive demographic of young adults and teenagers who were largely not even born when the show was on the air.
It is a genuinely striking cultural phenomenon. Generation Z has entirely rediscovered the show through streaming platforms, and they have basically stripped the wardrobe away from the context of the comedy.
They don't even care about the jokes, they just want the clothes.
They are studying the clothes. If you go on Pinterest, TikTok, or Instagram today, you will find thousands of fashion mood boards being shared daily.
Oh, I've seen them.
There are massive accounts solely dedicated to recreating Rachel's specific office outfits or analyzing the exact cut of Monica's straight-leg denim and sourcing vintage pieces to replicate Phoebe's layering.
And it isn't just internet mood boards either. You see it trickling all the way up to Paris and Milan.
Oh, definitely.
Like Miu Miu's recent collections featuring pleated skirts, fine gauge knits, and collegiate styling. It's echoing this exact 90s era, but there is a massive irony here that I just can't stop thinking about.
What's that?
Well, Gen Z is practically born with TikTok in their hands, right? They exist in an ecosystem of blistering fast fashion where brands are producing thousands of new garments a single day.
The sheer volume is staggering.
It is, and they are subjected to these microtrends like, mob wife aesthetic or tomato girl summer that last 3 weeks and then vanish completely.
It's exhausting just to observe.
Exactly. So why are they looking to a 1994 sitcom for their style cues? Are they studying the clothes, or are they craving the analog permanence the show represents?
You've hit the nail on the head. It is entirely about craving permanence.
Yeah.
I really don't think contemporary luxury designers or Gen Z teenagers are intentionally trying to cosplay as 90s sitcom characters.
No, that would be too literal.
Right. What happened is that Deborah McGuire managed to distill the fundamental underlying DNA of how women actually want to dress when they aren't being bullied by a trend cycle.
Wow, bullied by a trend cycle. That's a great way to put it.
Gen Z has been raised in an exhausting era of algorithmic fashion. The microtrends you mentioned create an immense psychological pressure to constantly consume and reinvent.
It's fashion as a content mill, basically. You buy it, film it, and throw it away.
Exactly. So the wardrobe of this specific show offers them something they have been absolutely starved of.
Stability.
Stability. A perfectly tailored slip dress, a great piece of knitwear, a simple white t-shirt paired with quality denim. These aren't fleeting 3-week TikTok trends. They are reliable, foundational garments.
They anchor you.
Exactly. The clothes on the show feel believable because they were never designed to chase a seasonal runway. They were built around silhouettes that flatter the human body.
Right.
So for Gen Z, adopting this style isn't really about 1990s nostalgia. You can't be nostalgic for a decade you didn't experience. It is a desperate search for stability in their own closets.
That reframes the whole conversation for me, honestly. When you're overwhelmed by digital noise and a million micro aesthetics just screaming for your attention, you look for a solid analog foundation.
You look for something real.
Yeah, Monica's loafers or Rachel's blazers provide exactly that. It's a visual validation that you do not have to completely reinvent your identity every 30 days to be considered stylish.
Precisely. And that is the ultimate triumph of the show's design. It did what the greatest fashion editorials always aspire to do, but rarely achieve. It captured an aesthetic that flat out refused to become dated.
Well, let's bring all of this home. The overarching through line we keep coming back to in our sources today is that the enduring power of this wardrobe isn't actually about the specific fabrics or the cuts of the clothes.
Not at all.
It's entirely about the psychology of the women wearing them. Deborah Maguire utilized costume design as a subtle tool for character development. The clothes reflected tangible personal growth, a desire for emotional stability, and a fierce, chaotic independence.
And that is the fundamental takeaway here. Authenticity simply outlasts spectacle.
Always.
The costume department never set out to predict the future of global fashion. They just dressed 6 ordinary people, honestly enough that decades later, the future collectively decided to dress like them.
That's amazing.
Modern consumers, whether they are shopping at high-end luxury boutiques or just scrolling through vintage resale apps, want garments that survive the anxiety of trends. They value longevity, utility, and emotional connection.
And they're finding all of those values hanging right there in Monica's hyper-organized closet.
Or layered fearlessly across Phoebe's vintage coats.
It's a beautiful testament to the idea that style only truly becomes timeless when it feels authentically lived in. Well, thank you so much for joining us on this exploration.
Thank you for having me.
We will see you in the next deep dive. But before you go, we want to leave you with a final thought to ponder as you look at your own wardrobe tomorrow morning. Think about your absolute favorite pieces of clothing. You know, the things you reach for again and again. If someone were to examine your closet 30 years from now, what story of personal evolution, quiet ambition, or joyful rebellion would your clothes tell about you?